Welcome to a tutorial video on learning Ren'Py. In this video I'm going to cover flags, also known as variables. In visual novel terminology, the term flag is often used for setting internal variables within a visual novel. You hear the terms raising a flag or setting a flag, meaning that relationship changes as a result of player reactions or player choices within a visual novel. The player will do something and a flag will be raised, is usually the terminology. In which case, and within the code, a variable was changed. So some type of value was changed as a result of player actions. In Ren'Py, we can do that by using Python code within the Ren'Py code itself. I put up an example here from the question, one of two examples that come with Ren'Py 7 launcher. And I've started with this choice right here presented by the menu. The two choices are, it's a video game and it's an interactive book. The result of which, if we choose the second option, changes the variable. It sets a flag. So let's see that in action. If we choose it's an interactive book, we see it's an interactive book that you can read on a computer or console, interactive, and we proceed through. So let's stop here now that we've proceeded through this and go look at the code. So let's start here. I've pulled up the script file for this the question as part of its project. I'm using the Atom editor and I'm looking first at line 7 of this code. This is setting a variable. And helpfully the comment above this has told us this. This is a variable that is true if you've compared a visual novel VN to a book and false otherwise. Notice we're using the keyword default to setting a variable book to the value false. This will be used significantly later within this code. So we're establishing, like with our characters, like with anything else we wanted to do before the start label, which is line 11 here. We're establishing all the variables, all of the characters. We're getting all of that set up that we'll then use within the code. So we're seeing here at line 7 with the default word, the keyword default, setting the variable book to false. When it's used is significantly later. See, we saw, as I paused in the question, this menu in its two choices. It's a video game or it's an interactive book. In which case we're jumping to either game or book. Let's go look at book. The label book starts on line 134 and here 136 changes the variable book that was established back on line 7. Notice though that because it's code, because it's Python code in particular, that it has to start with a $sign. This lets Ren'Py know that this is Python code that we're running. And so that's what we're changing here. Using the Python code with a $sign and a space and whatever code we're doing, we're changing the value of this variable. In this case, we raise the flag, back in our terminology of using flags, within the visual novel by clicking on it's an interactive book. This changed the variable inside the code book from false to true, and then significantly later, as we saw and we didn't even realize it, this was used down here in a conditional statement to check if book was true or false. If it's true, which means we took the book path, then we see here we saw the option 174. Our first game is based on one of Sylvia's ideas, but afterwards I get to come up with stories of my own too, which we saw in practice. Let's go back just a little bit. This is what we saw. This was a result of us choosing the option it's an interactive book, which raised the flag, changed a variable within the story. We can use variables like this and flags, depending on how you want to use the terminology, as ways to branch the stories just like menus and jumps. If we're using menus who can present choices to the player, the reactions to those choices can be to change variables. Then, using those changed values, we can then react in different ways. This is an example here of using the question in a similar manner. We change the value of a variable set before the story started as a result of a choice made during the story. Based on that choice, other text was shown or not. Because we took the interactive book route, we saw line 174. Had we not done that, and chosen it's a video game, and then proceeded on with that, we would not have seen line 174. Variables then, like in review, can be used to test different things, whether or not a value is true or false in this case, using conditional statement 172. It was set, again, using Python code. Whenever we use Python code within Ren'Py, we also need the $sign. But we establish a variable before the labels start, just like we set up characters. So in this case, using the keyword default, we could also use define in a similar manner to set up a value we're then going to check later in the story. So in review, we establish variables before the labels start. Depending on the value of that variable, if we want to use it during a conditional statement, we can use the if keyword and other similar Python code to check conditional statements. If we want to change its code, we need to include Python code to do that. To include Python code, we use the $sign. Variables then, or setting or raising flags, depending on how you want to look at the terminology, can be used in different ways and to provide different outcomes and to show the user different texts depending on what choices they make, what routes they take, or how they interact with the visual novel. Thanks for watching.